I'd sing all day and all night.
What do you sing, Lizzie?
I sing dirty songs. I know. I happened to tell them one time that I knew a song, Mr. Woo. It's a bit nasty, but George Formby, I think, made it. But no, I wouldn't sing it for anyone else. I sing it there.
The notebooks very much captured a specific period of time for older people and their stories. The A5 moleskin notebook in itself was uniform, and all of the participants were offered the same notebook, but that's where the similarity ended. You can see the personality and the stories, and that everybody's experience of COVID-19 has been very different. Some of the diaries were very specific to COVID and told COVID stories, and others didn't. This project very much gave older people and those cocooning the opportunities to tell their stories, document their lives, and to give their account of what happened in Kildare during COVID-19.
I got involved with the project because, as part of an archive, just to record what's happening during a lockdown is unique. We never had one before. Hopefully we will never have one again. My daughter got married last year. She had a baby, a beautiful baby, born on the 8th of April, slap bang in the middle of the COVID crisis. And because of restrictions, because we couldn't travel, we couldn't hold him, we couldn't go near him, except through the window for weeks and weeks on end. Because we couldn't talk to him, I wrote him a letter, dated the 11th of April 2020. Dear Liam, welcome to our world. I know you are confused after 9 months of coziness and warmth. Now you are surrounded by strange noises, walls, lights, forced food into you as you lie outside your mammy, who carried you so warm and cosy. Every day you grew contentedly, near the end reminding your mam of the presence with a few gentle kicks. Have a wonderful life with all its ups and downs. It's still a smashing place to be. Lots of love, Grandad John.
I don't know whether it was the absence of cars and planes and transport generally, but certainly nature really seemed to come into the forefront during those COVID days. Even in the mornings, waking up here, I'd wake to the sound of traffic. And now I was waking to the sound of birds, and they were so clear and so, so beautiful. Looking back on it now, I'm struck by things that I'm seeing here that I had forgotten. We watched Leo Varadkar giving us the latest news on the easing of restrictions, and we unanimously agreed that he's the most handsome Taoiseach we've ever had. Oh, and then beside him there was a woman using sign language to explain what he was saying. And in fact, handsome as he is, we stopped looking at him and we were totally focused on her because her face was so expressive and the movements of her hands, her whole being was giving this information. And we just became mesmerised by her. Wonderful.
Just sat here one night and just went in with it all. And I was delighted I put a few photographs. What, did you see the flowers? Ah, gee, Chris. Oh, the teeth are good in that, aren't they? And that was the party last year. That's my daughter, Barbara. Family is the best. I had 3 boys, and then I had 3 girls. Then I had the 4th boy. And when I went in the last time, I had this doctor engaged in the comb. And he said to me, what are you hoping for? Well, I said, I tell you this much, doctor. If it's a boy, he can go up in the attic. I'm having no more. When he woke me, he said, you needn't put him in the attic. It's another girl. So I evened them up, 4 boys, 4 girls.
The strangest thing about COVID-19 and the way it's affected us is that I've actually nearly accepted it. In March, when it was happening, and we knew how seriously we were taking this because the Patrick's Day Parade was cancelled. Now, I'm a keen photographer, so the first thing I wanted to do was hop on the bus and go into town and take photographs. And I got out in this very, very desolate O'Connell Street with one girl standing outside the GPO from Euro News and a guy who had come over from England with a massive big, like a Norwegian pipe. But he was the sole representation of the Patrick's Day Parade. It hit us. Now we needed to stay at home. Dublin had cancelled the Patrick's Day Parade. That's how serious this disease was.
It was surreal. There'd be no one around. Like, it was like a ghost town. Like, you know, it was like one of these films where you'd see where everyone had to be whisked away somewhere else. And you didn't know how far you could go, which was, I found, a bit confusing, like, you know, 2 kilometres or whatever it was. Being on my own here, living on my own, like, you know, I was lonely. But I'm lucky in a way, like, that I have neighbours around here, like, you know, and it's always the fact that you have a phone or someone rings the phone or rings how you can talk to someone on the phone so you can keep a distance. But it must have been very lonely for people living in the country and see no one at all or that, you know. And I think the hardest part of all was missed the social aspect of it, missing the people, to talk to people, someone to talk to, going outside and having someone to talk to.
I suppose from a person living on their own and of a certain age, you wonder what the rest of the world is up to, and it's a bit like retiring for a second time or something. And you say, right, if I'm not going to the shops and I'm not going into town to get my coffee and I'm not going to do this, I should really have this time. I should be able to do wonderful bits of art. No excuse if you have a pencil and paper or whatever. Glue. Glue is great. You can recycle and mend and fix things and whatever. And sniff it. No, don't. I didn't say that. You know, do you live alone? I said, no, I don't. You know, well, what do you mean? Well, the dog comes up to the bed and her bed is on top of my bed. And who gets you up in the morning for a walk? Oh, she does. I probably wouldn't have a walk if it wasn't for her. I think maybe the most important thing for people who get older, you get lazy and you need motivation. And you really need a slap in the face with a wet fish. No, in this case, it'll be a rub of a nose and a paw on your from a dog in the morning. Come on, time for the walk.
The mask made is to facilitate the mask. So when you put the elastic around your ears, if you're wearing that all day long, it's quite a lot of pressure on your ears. So instead of having the elastic around your ear, you hook it onto one of these buttons. At one stage, I was knitting my daughter, Jennifer, and my granddaughters, Amy and Keelan. So the 4 of us were all knitting together. And you know, if my mother had been there, because my mother was an avid knitter, it would have been a lovely, you know, scenario, because I just took after Mum with knitting. I've been knitting all my life. And I decided, well, I'll put one on the notebook, because this was one of my main things that I felt at least I was contributing, I was doing something positive for others. And then just added a smiley face, because this really did give me joy and pleasure. It gave me something positive to focus on.
The nature of a diary or a notebook, they're generally private, but these notebooks are different because they were always intended to be part of an archive for the county, for the country. I think there'll be international interest in this. And it was lovely to think that this modest little project with humble little notebooks can be part of that bigger picture. It's amazing what's been captured in the notebooks, and Lizzie, who is a 91-year-old notebook participant, wrote in her diary about walking around her patio 91 times and raising money for 2 local charities.
I love getting the news. I love getting the news. Last November, my granddaughter was expecting her baby. I got on the bus and I said, you'll never guess, my 19th great-grandchild was born last night. And they all went, hooray, you know. You'd want to see the little fella. He took his first steps the other day, 10 months old. We get more photographs.
Now, this is the 2nd of June, still working on achieving the sparkling house. Well, now it's the what of September and the sparkling house is not with me yet. I do have a very clear recollection because at the beginning of that week on the Monday, that was the 9th of March, I had a few missed calls. So I rang my brother and he just told me that our mother was gone. So yeah, this was I mean, she had been incapacitated for the previous 6 years since she had a brain hemorrhage, and we'd been looking after her at home. And then we were able to have a funeral mass on the Friday, probably not with all the people who would have come had it been normal times. We often said to each other that we were so lucky and so blessed that we were able to have that, because of course then subsequent to that a number of people died that we knew, and what did we do? Stand outside the house or stand outside the church. And yeah, we knew we'd been very, very fortunate that we were able to have what we did have, you know, which was a huge help, very consoling at the time, yeah.
I actually have written down here, COVID is like World War III, except you don't know who your enemy is, and your enemy could be your most loved one. Really, really miss Mum, and the fact now that she's in the nursing home now, the one thing I'm grateful for is that she's being looked after, you know, because she's 95 now. She needs us more now than she ever did, and we're restricted to seeing her. So it's really, really difficult.
It's sort of important, even if you are retired or whatever, to know if you like Friday or if Saturday's your favourite day. I think it's important to mark them, and but you have to adjust and acclimatise. But that was a bit of a shock when you well, particularly if you're cocooning completely. You know, you do feel very isolated.
We're always near that little cliff edge, and it's only going to take that little bit extra to push you over the cliff again. And personally, I think people wouldn't take a second lockdown as well as they took the first one, especially during lockdown. And I don't think the country could survive it.
This is different. It's of a different order, because it's not only oneself or the local community, but it's the whole world is being affected by this, and also in the usual comforts that you would have if something was going on that was a bit challenging, like getting a hug from a friend or giving a family member a hug. We can't do that anymore.
What I would say about COVID-19 and the situation I found myself in, it has definitely sparked a certain creativity. To do a diary and to find that it's part of an archive and a setup in which we will get to see other people's thoughts, if that makes sense, that fascinates me, because we're talking about different age groups now, and we're talking about people with such radically different approaches to this that I wouldn't have imagined. And that's where I will say my own interests peak, I think. I like hearing other people's ideas. I like seeing what they come up with, that I would love to see it go on and become something more.